for everyone who doesn't know you, Dr. Tom Acklin is a leading edge voice in neuroscience and gut-brain integrity, bringing his expertise to people suffering with autoimmune conditions and cancer. He's a specialist in brain health and mental stability and has worked in food as medicine therapeutics for 20 years. He's passionate about helping us understand the power of the microbiome in reversing almost everything we call modern disease. He is actively engaged in the education and development of youth through farm-to-table education. Dr. believes in the curative energies of empowerment, metaphysics, pay-it-forward healing dynamics, and the power of community and fellowship therapeutics. Tom, you really walk, and I know talking about reclaiming food joy. So it would be great. Just tell us what food joy means to you, and okay, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Well, in the world of walking the talk, I love the theme of "Come as you are," and I'm coming as I am, and a fun-looking monkey. And Phil really inspired me, and I'm going to share with everybody an acronym today that came to me this morning. But she also inspired an acronym with her talk, because the power of the pact, which is her one of her brands. I wrote pursuing, assimilating, childlike tenacity. So she's talking about perseverance, right? And we all know the power of I'm not gonna, or I wanna, right? And that's tenacity. So that's the sub-theme: pursuing, assimilating, childlike tenacity for all of us funny looking monkeys here. I want to honor you and Shamima too. Your work with your empowerment work with Leave No Girl Behind, and when you were describing structure and the idea of being uniquely me, I'd like to use that as a metaphor because we'll talk about regenerative nutrition today and the power of our sacred food and the different joys that the foodstuffs bring us. In that world of regeneration, we are always the child. We are always looking to be next version of unique me. Yeah. And so we can either step onto the conveyor belt of degeneration and believe that we are something real now, which will decay over time, kind of like a monument decays. Or we can know that we are intimately involved with all of the relationships around us. And that means the things that we chew and swallow. It means the things that we hear and see. It means the things that we entertain as new ideas that we either assimilate and make ours, or we let go. And when you were talking about being educated into our families and being good little boys and girls, right? Good little representatives of our family. I loved Phil's closing comment when she was talking to Danny about looking up to her, because the kids do have a passion. And that's I think that's what came from this acronym: pursuing, assimilating, childlike tenacity. And I always want to find that pilot light in me, that fire, that river she was talking about, that river that runs through me.
Yeah. And in the way of when we're looking at literal food, because you work in this, and when you brought in children, you've had and have a farm to table projects where you can teach young people about the importance of what food can do for your body, what food can do for one's being. So when you talk about reclaiming food joy, I think when we relate that to living life on our own terms, we're looking at it, well, how can eating cabbage or Brussels sprouts or like celery help me to live life on my own terms? And that's what a lot of people think. And it's nothing like that. So why don't you speak to that about what you feel about that and what reclaiming food joy means, what living life on one's own terms means in relation to food joy?
Beautiful bridge. Got it. Thank you. So let me just tell a quick story too. I'm on Hilton Head Island, which is the east coast of the US, the Atlantic shoreline here. And I spent a day on the way down here in Savannah, Georgia. And if anybody knows Savannah, gorgeous old city, and talk about decaying monuments. It's peppered with monuments to the traditions, not just of the native people and the Indians who helped the settlers here in the 15th, 16th century, but all of the other monuments that went through the chaos of the putting together of a nation, right? And you can walk around, and structurally, architecturally, it's a gorgeous city. There are nooks and crannies everywhere, and it's one of those places that there are balconies and porticos and porches, and you hear sounds from trees that have invested themselves into the sidewalks, and it's a very clean city. When you look at it, you go as a tourist, it's a very well-groomed city, but it's not groomed in the world of monoculture, monocrop. It's not sterilized, it's not pesticided, it's not sculpted into a well-behaving kid who is told you can't say that, right? And the trees are covered with vines, and the physical structures are covered with plants, and the animals are playing, and the little lizards are playing. And I say all that just because when we talk about a variety of foods, and I'll look at the nuts and bolts of what a healthy menu is and why. But when we look at that, it's not a single deliverable. We've gotten lost in the past couple of generations in thinking that the pertinent biochemical manipulation is, quote, healthcare. Healthcare means, just as you said, the kid who's in the garden with his hands in the dirt, learning the interactions, and there's a wisdom that comes along with that can't be taught in textbooks. It doesn't mean we shouldn't look at the textbooks and understand the chemicals and understand what the end deliverable is. But the underlying idea here is, much the way that childlike tenacity and that regenerative capacity of the body is something we want to keep alive, that pilot light we want to keep alive. I have 3 words. So everybody's heard of alkaline diets, making the news in the past years. Is it a good idea to eat an alkaline diet? It's not a bad idea. But if you are in a place physiologically where you're so challenged that you have to eat an alkaline diet, that means you have to be careful. That means you're taking extra steps because you can't handle the truth of life on life's terms and the interactions, all of the different inflammatories. So rather than eating alkaline diet, we want a body that can alkalinize. When we chew and swallow something, it hits a 2.5 pH. It hits acid, hydrochloric acid in the stomach. That's the very first gateway of the body. It's the place where we first encounter. And if we don't have that acid, if we don't have that ability to monitor and encounter, then we're probably not going to deal very well with the message of the orange or the tangerine that we just ate, right? There is a message to the food stuff and a sacred deliverable. Alkaline. So we want a body that can alkalinize. Second is keto. Keto diets are great. But again, if you have to micromanage to the point where you're eating a ketogenic diet, that means you don't have a body that is ketogenic, that is capable of creating ketones, which are the chemicals that tell the body to repair. And third is cholesterol. we don't necessarily want to eat cholesterol. We can, if you eat cholesterol, make sure it came from healthy, thriving, happy animals. But we want a body that can cholesterolize. So we want a body that is regenerative enough and responsive enough and interactive enough that it can alkalinize, it can ketonize, and it can cholesterolize. And then those problems, when Phil was talking about handling a problem for 5 minutes and moving into the solution, then you've got a body that can move into the solution very quickly. Inflammation is a fantastic interface, and we can't possibly interact with the world without being inflamed. Might be physiologic inflammation, it might be a little annoyance, right? It might be a little sadness. That's an inflammation of sorts. And can we come back to center? How quickly can we come back to center and move into the solution? And I'll tell one more quick story too. A friend asked me yesterday how I was doing, and was asking about another friend actually. And I paused and I said, my people are disillusioned. And I think everybody can relate to this. And I don't want to focus on the downer for very long, but we'll do it as an illustration, right? I think we all know what it's like to be disconnected from something, especially the past couple of years. And my challenge for everybody today would be to identify something that used to feed you. Might be a sport, it might be a phone call to a friend or a family member, either for your own good or theirs or both. It might be a particular hobby. It might be enjoying a certain kind of food. It might be spending some time alone doing what's important to you. Identify something that you used to do that feeds you that is missing from your life right now. And that is the essence of disillusion. When we think about being disconnected, the city of Savannah and the vines growing and playing with the cypress trees and the Spanish moss, that's a very connected, in the flow, in the congress of life dynamic. And when we pull away and we sterilize and we disconnect from the things, we become emotionally disconnected as well. So it's a physical sterilization when we're eating monocropped and processed food. It's a physical sterilization, but it's also an emotional sterilization. So part two of that, identifying, I hope I did that in less than 5 minutes, moving away from that sadness. And, you know, some people would say, is it necessary to feel sadness or anger or negative emotion in order to know what joy is? And many people would agree that yes, it is. It's the thing of contrast that brings us that urge, and that childlike urge, that tenacity, moves into a place where it's ready for dialogue, into the next thing. And so I'll share the acronym that came to me this morning. If anybody has any questions about anything I said, by the way, I threw a lot of ideas there and kind of mixed them all together. And I know Hastina likes the jambalaya of it all. So I tried not to be too organic and linear with it. And, you know, since that's the theme of the day. But if anybody has any comments or questions, feel free to put those in the chat. I'll share one more piece of our physical, maybe boring chemistry before I tell you what my pact is. When I talk, two more things. So the thing that stopped my family in their tracks was me 17 years ago now, after practicing neurology at Georgetown and doing that nuts and bolts work with multiple sclerosis patients, especially. I stopped putting chemicals in, and I told them I was taking a sabbatical and I was going to stop practicing medicine. That stopped them in their tracks. The various threads of my career since then took me down other healing roads where I was luckily exposed to many different ideas and many different healing traditions, where I could not just learn for myself how to heal myself and put my body in a regenerative space, but teach other people too, how to ketonize, cholesterolize, and alkalinize, and eat in such a way that we're not poisoning ourselves, but move into a space where those 500 billion cells that we make newly every day are actually better than they were yesterday. And then the new unique version of me can emerge. Yeah. So what's the way to do that? First order of business is to stop doing the thing that hurts us. And that's artificial food, that's hormone laden food. It's food that was grown in pesticides and fertilizers. And then we can be in a space where we can surprisingly add novel foodstuffs. So talk about a wide variety of food. As hunters and gatherers, we eat hundreds of different species of plants every week. And we're very far away from that in the modern world these days. So the first order of business is eat something that was happy when it was alive. And the second order of business is eat something that you haven't eaten in a while that was happy when it was alive, and begin to increase and begin to add variety, and then thirdly, begin to add variety from something that maybe came from your backyard or your neighbor's backyard, or somewhere close to the ecosystem in which you live. We've also taken to eating things that came from very far away. So we eat local, we eat raw, we eat happy food. And then we're putting ourselves in a place where we can receive. And I was going to talk about the power of intention. I think I've gone on enough, but I was going to talk about the power of intention of the food stuff. And Hasina, much the way you and Shamima here have an intention in bringing people together so that they can bring their voice, right? When we chew and swallow that tangerine, A, was it a happy food? B, is it a hungry food? Does it have that childlike curiosity? And is it bringing a message that says, I would like to teach Hasina something today. I, Tangerine, would like to teach Hasina something today. And so then we begin to be in dialogue with the food itself. And so the acronym that came to me this morning was flowering food, FOOD, flowering organic opinion delivered. And you can substitute any F you want: flowering, festive, frolicky organic opinion delivered. And that life form, if it was a happy tangerine, since I'm in the South, let's go with mangoes. Since if it was a happy mango that came off a mango tree, it's got an opinion, it's got something to offer, right? It's got a deliverable. It's like a child throwing the tantrum. It says, listen to me, I have things to teach you. And then, yes, I am the thing that consumes it. I'm the silly monkey, or the funny looking monkey that chews it and swallows it. But it's teaching me, much the way my quote students would teach me in dialogue, right? And we're talking about food, of course, but that happens in every dynamic of our life. And when we've put ourselves in a place where we are metabolically competent, where we are metabolically flexible, and we are thriving mind, body, spirit creatures, where we're thriving, then we also can be that childlike curiosity in community. And then we can step back into conversations with a new kind of passion. And I think that's the essence of what I would like to deliver into the conversation about finding the unique us, right? The river that runs through me, so that my unique me begins with food. It begins with a sacred self-respect that says, I'm not going to poison myself today.
Yeah. I love that chat. Please repeat the acronym.
I'll probably repeat the acronym thousands of times here. I can type it too. Flowing, so flowing organic, and I even be powering organic opinion delivered. One more idea on that too, because people ask me about supplements all the time. And we've to a place where, because supply is so nutrient poor and non-food, right? It's actually got very little to deliver. So it's not food, it's unfood or something. They're a great idea. And most of us need them. Most of us are vitamin D deficient, magnesium deficient, mineral deficient, et cetera, et cetera. But taking a capsule and putting a tablet in your body doesn't necessarily mean it made it to the target tissues. So if that's a foodstuff, and it might be a really nice omega supplement or a vitamin D or a CalMag, and if it's not recognized by a body that's happy and assimilated, absorbed and sent to the target tissues and assimilated, then it hasn't been delivered. And then it's just food. Then it's flowing organic opinion undelivered, right? So that last D is delivered. That last D is let's get it in the tissues, and let's get to a place where we can regenerate.
That
And substitute your own F there. It can be, if you want to live on the leading edge, it could be fornicating organic opinion delivered. It's life forms are looking to interact and learn and evolve.
I love that. Thank you. And I love that message, about coming back to center. I was reading Peter Michael, you commented that about the positive contain the negative. And it's so interesting how we view things. It's all a view, what we see as positive and negative. But basically coming back to center, to center as a living on your terms, whether you say that this is how it's this is how it is, positive or negative, but can we come back to center? Can we reconnect? Can we reclaim? And Peter Michael, we see what we teach ourselves to see. That is brilliant. We do see what we teach ourselves to see. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tom. That was amazing. Does anyone have any questions, comments? You're welcome to raise your hand electronically, because I won't be able to see your hand. I'm just looking through here. So if you have any comments or questions, feel free. And if you think of some later, put it in the chat. We're going to have our community in unity just a little bit later. All right.